Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Ethan Wallace was experiencing a moment of pure fulfillment. He walked through the streets of Manhattan with confident strides, feeling in control of his life. The offer to lead a division at Summit Innovations was more than just a career milestone, it was the validation of years of dedication and sacrifice. At the office, co-workers congratulated him, and the buzz of a promising future filled the air. He could hardly wait to share the news with Chloe, his wife, the woman he believed was his partner in everything. That afternoon, everything felt calm. Ethan parked the car in the garage and walked into the house. The golden light of the sunset shone through the living room windows, and the aroma of the coffee Chloe had made still lingered. He noticed the landline phone blinking with a new voicemail notification. It was rare for anyone to use that line, but curious, he pressed the button to listen. The voice on speaker made him freeze. "Chloe, it's Mark. I need to see you. Can we meet on Friday? I miss you." The world around Ethan seemed to slow down. The message, short and direct, felt like a punch in the gut. The name Mark immediately came to mind. He knew who it was. Mark Thompson, Chloe's ex-boyfriend, someone she'd mentioned casually in the past. There was always something about him that bothered Ethan, but Chloe had insisted it was ancient history, a closed chapter. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to stay rational. Maybe there was a logical explanation. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But the more he tried to convince himself, the more the sense of betrayal and insecurity grew inside him. He pressed the replay button, listening to the message again, analyzing every pause and intonation in search of a sign that it was innocent. He found nothing. The phone trembled in his hand. He felt his heart race and the blood rush to his face. His mind started piecing together memories, small moments that had once seemed insignificant. Times when Chloe seemed distracted, times she said she was too busy to talk, messages she quickly deleted on her phone. Everything now looked suspicious, and doubt began to eat away at his confidence. He went upstairs and found Chloe in the bedroom, distractedly folding some clothes. The scene looked so ordinary that he almost questioned whether he was overreacting. But the message still echoed in his head. Unable to contain his anger, Ethan walked into the room with determined steps. "Who is Mark to you, Chloe?" His voice was cold but filled with intensity. Chloe, caught off guard, looked up. The question seemed to hit her like an unexpected blow. "What?" "Ethan, what are you talking about?" She tried to stay composed, but something in her tone sounded overly defensive. "Don't try to fool me. I just heard his message on the phone. He wants to see you. He misses you." Ethan's words came out sharp, each syllable loaded with indignation. "Now tell me, what's going on?" For a moment, Chloe seemed lost, as though searching for a response that wouldn't incriminate her. "Ethan, it's nothing. Mark. He's an old friend. He must be misunderstanding things." Her voice, though calm, had a hint of nervousness that Ethan immediately recognized. "Friend? Is that all he is?" Ethan laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that showed amusement. It was a bitter laugh, filled with frustration. "What kind of a friend misses you like that, Chloe? Don't underestimate me." Chloe tried to get closer, placing her hands on his arms in a conciliatory gesture. "Ethan, you're blowing this out of proportion. There's nothing going on between me and Mark. I didn't even know he left that message." But Ethan couldn't believe her. Every word sounded like a rehearsed excuse, an attempt to hide the truth. He backed away, pulling away from her touch. His mind was consumed by a mix of anger and sadness. The woman he had chosen as his partner was hiding something, he was sure of it. Without saying another word, he left the bedroom and went downstairs, feeling the weight of what had just happened. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt cold, almost claustrophobic. In the heat of the moment, he noticed a photo frame on the coffee table. It was a picture of them on a trip to the Caribbean, both smiling, happy. The image seemed to mock his pain. On impulse, he grabbed the frame and threw it on the floor, watching the glass shatter into 1,000 pieces. Ethan knew that moment marked a turning point. He would never be the same. He looked around, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions running through him. He still didn't know how he would handle everything, but one thing was certain: he had to find out the whole truth, no matter the cost. The tension in Ethan's house was unbearable. Ever since he'd discovered Mark's message, the atmosphere felt heavy, as though the very air had become denser. Ethan couldn't look at Chloe without a flood of doubt and anger washing over him. He knew he needed to dig deeper. Words wouldn't be enough, he needed proof, something that would tear apart the lies he felt were being told right in front of him. Ethan was a meticulous man, someone who believed in the power of precision and detail. This approach had been key to his success in technology, but now it would be his ally in a very different field: the search for truth. He began turning his home into a surveillance lab. Small cameras were discreetly placed in strategic spots: in the living room, in the hallway leading to the bedroom, even in the kitchen. Listening devices were placed where Chloe spent most of her time, like the home office and the bedroom. He spent hours setting up each piece of equipment, testing angles, making sure nothing would escape him. He did all this while Chloe was out, claiming to have meetings with friends or random errands that now felt suspicious. Ethan never questioned her, he let her go, knowing that soon he would have the answers he was looking for. During the first few days, he only monitored the devices for short periods, almost as if training his patience for a decisive moment. Chloe's everyday conversations seemed normal, with nothing that might incriminate her. But on the third day, things changed. Chloe was on the phone in the bedroom, her voice muffled by the partially closed door. From downstairs, Ethan listened to the audio feed on his computer. She sounded nervous, hesitant. "I don't know, Mark. I don't think it's a good idea right now." "Yes, I want to, but things are complicated." Ethan froze when he heard the name that had become his worst nightmare. The conversation went on, with Chloe trying to end it quickly, but there was a clear tension in her voice. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. It was more than he expected to find so soon. The recording confirmed his suspicions: she was in contact with Mark. But the real question was why? Why risk a stable marriage? Why get involved in something that could destroy everything they had built? In the days that followed, he intensified his monitoring. That's when another discovery hit him like lightning. Another conversation surfaced, but this time it wasn't Chloe speaking. It was Jessica, his sister-in-law. Ethan almost ignored the audio, assuming it would be something trivial, but decided to listen just in case. Jessica was on the phone with someone, and her voice sounded confidential, as though confessing something. "I should never have let this happen, Mark. It was a mistake, and now it's haunting me. You know that." Ethan felt a chill. Jessica was talking to Mark. Not only Chloe, but also his sister-in-law had a connection to this man. As he kept listening, something even more shocking came to light. Jessica mentioned her twins, her children. "If Ethan finds out the boys could be yours, I don't know what he'll do." The sentence hit Ethan like a bomb. He had to pause the audio, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Jessica's twins, who everyone believed came from a rocky marriage with her distant ex-husband, were now part of this web of lies. Ethan felt as though the ground was crumbling beneath him. It wasn't just Chloe. It was Jessica. It was Mark. And now, possibly even the children were involved in this mess. He spent hours that night reviewing videos and audio clips, trying to process what he'd discovered. Every detail made it seem like his world was slowly falling apart. Lying in bed, Chloe sleeping peacefully beside him as if nothing was wrong, Ethan stared at the ceiling, his thoughts spinning out of control. He wasn't sure what he was going to do with this information, but he knew he couldn't go on living under the same roof with so many lies and secrets. He had to act, though what would happen next was still forming in his mind like a storm about to break. The night Ethan confronted Jessica was thick with tension, like a drawn bowstring about to snap. He called her over while Chloe was out, saying there was something urgent they needed to discuss about the family. Jessica arrived, suspicious, but tried to keep up her usual composure. Ethan, however, wasn't in the mood for beating around the bush. Sitting in the living room, he played a recording on speaker. It was the audio where Jessica mentioned the twins and the possibility that Mark was their father. Jessica went pale hearing her own words echo in the room. "Explain this, Jessica," Ethan said in a grave tone, his face blank. He was calm on the outside, but inside he was a storm. Jessica hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. "Ethan. I don't know what to say." Her voice wavered, like she was searching for the right words. Ethan didn't have the patience for that. He fixed his gaze on her, his eyes so intense that she looked away. "You don't know what to say?" he asked, his voice rising. "Maybe start by telling the truth. You know exactly what's going on here. Who's the twins' father, Jessica? Mark? Or," he paused, leaning forward, the words cutting like knives. "Is it me?" Jessica's eyes went wide with shock. "What? Ethan, how could you even think that?" She tried to appear outraged, but her reaction fell flat. Something in her expression seemed to confirm his suspicion. Ethan pushed further. "Don't treat me like an idiot, Jessica. There was a time before I met Chloe, before all this, when the two of us were together. You remember that. You may not have said anything at the time, but now it all makes sense. The twins have my smile, the way they look at people. You think I didn't notice?" Jessica covered her face with her hands, taking a deep breath as if trying to gather the courage to speak. "Ethan, I was never sure. You have to understand. My life was a mess back then. I had just left a horrible relationship, I was vulnerable, and, it happened. But by the time I found out I was pregnant, I had already cut off contact with you. I thought it wasn't possible, that the twins weren't yours." "But you weren't sure," Ethan replied, his words full of anger and hurt. "And yet you never told me." "Why?" Jessica lowered her hands, tears streaming down her face. "Because I was scared. Scared of what it would do to you, to me, to our family. Then I met Mark, and he seemed like an easy way out, a distraction. But Ethan, I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to move on." Ethan stayed silent for a few moments, absorbing what she'd said. Part of him wanted to scream, to demand clearer answers, but another part felt drained. He got up and began pacing the living room, trying to process everything. "I can't believe this," he murmured, more to himself than to Jessica. "First Chloe and Mark, and now this. The two of you lied to me for years. You played with my trust, with my life." Jessica began to sob harder. "Ethan, please forgive me. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know what to do." Ethan stopped and looked at her again. "Forgive you? You're asking to be forgiven for something you couldn't even admit until I found out myself. And you think that's enough?" Jessica tried to step closer, but Ethan raised his hand, signaling for her to keep her distance. "Not now, Jessica. I need time. I need space to figure this out." Before leaving, he met her eyes one last time. "I will find out the truth about these twins. And if they're mine, you can bet I'll do whatever is necessary. But don't expect things to go back to the way they were." He left the living room, leaving Jessica alone with her tears and her guilt. Upstairs, Ethan locked himself in the bedroom and sat on the bed, bearing the weight of everything he had just discovered. The truth was coming out, but at what cost? What else would he have to face before this storm finally ended? In the days following his confrontation with Jessica, Ethan sank into a swirl of conflicting emotions. Anger still burned inside him, but now it was mixed with something deeper, a sense of betrayal coming from every direction. Chloe, Jessica, Mark. All the pillars of his life had turned into sources of doubt and lies. He felt he couldn't trust anyone. But Ethan was also a man of action, and passivity wasn't in his nature. He decided he wouldn't be a victim. If everyone around him had betrayed his trust, he would use this chaos to his advantage. He started to take action, but this time not to find answers. He already knew enough. Now he wanted something else, control. He began behaving in a way that confused Chloe and Jessica. Instead of confrontation, he acted in a calculated manner. At breakfast, he'd smile at Chloe and ask trivial questions as though everything were fine. With Jessica, he maintained an uneasy politeness, never mentioning the conversation about the twins but giving her looks that made her restless. On the surface, Ethan seemed to be moving on. But on the inside, he was formulating a plan. He wanted both of them to feel the weight of their actions, not with yelling or accusations, but in a silent, relentless way. The following week, Ethan started going out more often. He said he needed space, time to think, and Chloe didn't dare question him. During these outings, he began frequenting bars and social events he used to ignore. There, he met new people, women who watched him with interest. He didn't get involved right away, but struck up conversations, developing superficial connections with a single purpose, to make Chloe realize she no longer owned him. One night, he came home later than usual. Chloe was on the couch, waiting for him. "Are you okay? You've been going out a lot," she tried to sound concerned, but there was a note of insecurity in her voice. Ethan smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm great, Chloe. Maybe better than I've been in years." The answer made her look away, clearly uncomfortable. He started leaving signs that something was changing. Different scents on his clothes, discreet messages on his phone that he only ignored when he knew Chloe was looking. It was a cruel game, but Ethan felt it was fair. With Jessica, his approach was even more calculated. He found ways to be alone with her on various occasions, not to confront her, but to remind her, implicitly, of the power he now had over her. One day, while she was pouring coffee in the kitchen, Ethan came in and stood there silently for a few seconds. When Jessica finally looked at him, he said, "Lovely day, isn't it? Perfect for settling old scores." He gave her a slight smile before walking out, leaving her visibly on edge. Tension in the house reached unbearable levels. Chloe began to sense the changes in Ethan but didn't know how to approach him. Jessica, for her part, seemed on the verge of a breakdown. Both knew something had shifted, but neither knew how to handle it. Ethan, on the other hand, felt in control, though he realized this control came with a price. He was no longer the same man he'd been before. Betrayal had changed him, and now he was driven by a desire for revenge that, even though it kept him focused, was also slowly eating away at him. He began wondering how far he was willing to go. But when he looked at Chloe and Jessica, he saw in them the reflection of his own actions. For Ethan, there was no turning back. He had chosen his path and was determined to see where it led. The morning of the final showdown started off almost ordinary, as if the house itself were trying to hide the weight of what was about to happen. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, and the sound of the kettle bubbling echoed through the kitchen, but there was something different in Ethan's demeanor. He was quieter than usual, his movements meticulously measured, like each gesture was part of a final dance only he knew the steps to. Chloe and Jessica felt it too. The tension was tangible, suffocating. Chloe glanced sideways at Ethan as she set the breakfast table, trying to figure out what was going on. Jessica, on the other hand, could barely look him in the eye. Her gestures were jittery, almost mechanical, as if she were walking on a tightrope about to break. Ethan said nothing during breakfast. There were no trivial questions, no forced smiles. He just ate in silence, every bite charged with an almost intimidating intensity. Chloe tried to break the silence. "Do you have something important at work today?" Her voice was hesitant, almost a whisper. He lifted his gaze, letting the fork rest lightly on the plate. "Actually, yes. Something very important." His tone was neutral, but there was weight behind his words that made Chloe swallow hard. Jessica averted her eyes, pretending to adjust something in the kitchen. After breakfast, Ethan went upstairs and returned with an envelope in his hand. He held it like it was a loaded weapon, and in a way, it was. He stopped in the living room, looking at the two women standing side by side, like prisoners awaiting a verdict. "I need to say something," Ethan began, his voice firm and devoid of emotion. "For weeks, I've been discovering truths you both hid from me. Truths that destroyed everything I believed about my life, about this family. Chloe, you emotionally cheated on me with Mark. And Jessica," he paused, turning his gaze to her, visibly shaking. "You lied about the twins, about who their father might be. Both of you abused the trust one gave you." Chloe tried to jump in. "Ethan, please, can we talk about this? I made mistakes, but, mistakes?" Ethan cut her off, his voice rising. "Those weren't just mistakes, Chloe. They were choices. Conscious choices you both made while leaving me in the dark." Jessica began to cry, mumbling something Ethan didn't bother to hear. He went on. "I've spent weeks thinking about what to do, and now I have my answer. No more excuses. There's no room for us anymore." He handed the envelope to Chloe, who hesitated before taking it. As she opened it, she saw divorce papers. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she read them. "Ethan, you can't do this. I love you. We can work this out, please." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Loving someone means respecting them, Chloe. And you didn't respect me or what we built. There's nothing here to fix anymore." Then he turned his attention to Jessica. "As for you, I'm going to find out the whole truth about the twins. If they're my kids, I'll take responsibility as their father, but don't expect anything more than that. You made your choices, and now you'll deal with the consequences." Jessica tried to speak, but Ethan raised his hand to silence her. "Don't try to justify yourself. There's nothing you can say to erase what you've both done." He picked up the bags he had already packed and headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time, looking at the two women with an expression that was part disappointment and part relief. "You two created this storm. Now you'll have to face it alone." With that, Ethan walked out, leaving behind a house brimming with silence and regret. Chloe dropped to her knees, weeping uncontrollably, while Jessica looked toward her twins upstairs, guilt weighing on her like an anchor. Outside, Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air on his face. For the first time in weeks, he felt light, as though he had left behind a burden that was too heavy to bear. He knew the road ahead was uncertain, but in that moment, he felt at peace with his decision not to tolerate lies and betrayal anymore. For him, it was the start of a new journey, one where he was finally in control of his own life. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.